Hello, everybody, and welcome back to F1 Unhinged. You might notice some new things. We've got some new branding. We've reverted back to our name or a prior name. And yeah, Josh, where we been?
So, elephant in the room. Yes, we've been gone quite a
About a
long
month.
time without really much warning. And the reason's kind of simple. Um, Recovery was a little bit harder than I thought it was going to be. And I had to go and do some pretty intense physical therapy. I've been doing workouts 7 days a week for the last month. And it took a lot to get my body back to a shape where I could handle sitting in a chair for an hour. That's really kind of the crux of it all. Is when I went back to my day job, things were a lot more difficult than we thought they were going to be, than we were prepared for them to be. And it became pretty evident right away doing episodes that I was not going to be able to keep doing it. So kind of figured it was just best off if we took a bit of time, let me just focus fully on recovery. And in that time, we got to do a lot of thinking about our branding and the name and a lot of things, and kind of came back to our original idea of what we wanted to do this year. And a little bit of a split, though, where we are still going to have a segment that talks about other motorsports, because that's something that we really wanted to include in this show. But we'll keep the main topic F1, because that's what brought us together and that's what got us here. And despite our frustrations at times, it's still the sport we love the most, even if we want to strangle it sometimes.
Yeah, it felt a bit disconnected and a bit disjointed uh, after we rebranded to the Unhinged Motorsports podcast. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, there was so many series that we're trying to cover, and a lot of them fell on the same weekends, which is incredibly challenging if you do many things in your life besides work, to kind of keep up with everything. But also, it kind of just didn't really have a cohesive flow, or really like any type of organization to it. And at the end of the day, Formula One is really what brought this whole thing together and made this whole podcast possible. And it feels good to kind of go back to talking more about Formula One in a more consistent manner, especially since the rule changes that have been made over the last several weeks have actually made racing a tiny bit better.
I'm more excited about what's coming next year and the year after that to fix the problem that we all knew was going to be a problem at the start, that the 50-50 split was idiotic and it was more of a pipe dream than something that could be reality with current technology. And also the fact that the purpose for this of the manufacturers was for road cars, but nobody's actually using the same 50-50 split technology in their road cars. So
Yeah.
it really wasn't helping that either. And it just kind of seemed a bit short sighted. And maybe partially that's because you made changes to the chassis and the engine in the same year. And it just, there were things that were going to be a disaster.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened. I really wish they would have listened to the drivers earlier, because the most outspoken of the drivers turned out to be dead on. And now we're seeing the changes that guys like Max and Fernando had asked for. And now they're having the other guys who maybe were more PR friendly to their teams and didn't want to talk out about it now being like, okay, yeah, this change needs to happen. And I'm glad that it is happening and that next year we'll see some more changes and we'll see a little bit more the year after that too, to where we'll get to that 60-40 split finally where it should have been all along. And
Yeah.
you and I had talked in preseason about that, of really thinking the 60-40 split should have been the way they did it, and we were hoping it wasn't a disaster. And I think it ended up worse than we thought it would. I think I think we had a little bit too much blind faith that they would figure it out.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And
Yeah.
the biggest thing is preseason, I had very little faith that they'd actually try to do anything during the season to make it better. I'm glad that they have at least done, things that they, can, at least the bare minimum things.
When I think
And
the behind closed doors test in Barcelona, we heard things coming out of that seemed hopeful. And then we got to reality and it was nothing like what we had heard coming out of Barcelona.
yeah, that's true. But we're back. We're excited to be back. And we've got a few topics today that we want to touch on. And first is Russell's win in
George Russell.
Austria. Yeah.
You know what was funny, when for a point of the race when it looked like Max was going to win, we had already knew that we were coming back this week and been preparing. And my first thought when I thought, shit, Max has a chance to win this, is going to be like, fuck. Of course, people are going to be like, oh, of course you come back the week Red Bull wins. Red Bull finally wins and you fuckers come back. But
Thankfully,
Russell
I mean, even
had
if it did happen that
finally had
way,
a good
that's fine.
race.
Y'all can have your feelings.
Yeah. Yeah. Russell finally had himself a good race, which he had been needing for a while. I still think he lucked out on a bit of a bad strategy call from Red Bull. I think Max should have won that race, and if Red Bull would have pit him earlier, he would have, because he was faster than George the whole race, really. But I also understand why they were trying to go long and get an offset. Just didn't work out for them. They had that free set of mediums, and I think they were trying to get to that set of mediums, but the hard tires just didn't last long enough, and it kind of had to abandon that strategy to not get passed by Kimi.
Yeah. Although I really would have loved to see Kimmy win again, just because I don't like George. So
Well, yeah, that's a given feeling, but it's very interesting watching the Mercedes dynamic, because this feels like 2016 to me in a little bit of a way, where in 2016 it started to feel like Mercedes didn't want Lewis to win and they wanted Rosberg to win. And there was a lot of tension at Mercedes over that, and really Hamilton and Rosberg's relationship deteriorated over their clashes that year, and what felt like Mercedes picking sides at points. And it kind of feels like Mercedes is doing that again, this time with Kimi, where Toto's newest pet project, it feels like they're much more excited when he wins. And I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I actually kind of feel bad for George Russell.
I don't.
Well, take away the fact that he's a cunt and look at it as a faceless driver. And they rebuilt the team around him and then have now kind of jettisoned him for the shiny new object.
Well, that shiny new object is performing way better than he is.
Agreed, but the only reason that is even possible is all the work that George has done over the last couple years. Because
I
let's be real, when they found out Lewis was leaving, Lewis wasn't involved in the car anymore. So this is really the third season without Lewis.
That's true.
He
I
he
don't know.
helped create the what is the new Mercedes, and then Toto got a shiny new toy, and that's all he cares about.
I think if George can continue to win, we'll see a bit more of Toto leaning back towards George's way. But I think Mercedes is very much result driven, especially since they had so many wonderful years with Lewis bringing the team back. Like, but it all depends on if George can keep performing. Because if he can't, that's not going to change.
But you
Like
know
if
why I think you're
Kimmy keeps
wrong?
winning, why am I wrong?
Because Toto never got over losing out on Max Verstappen, and he wants his own Max Verstappen now. The guy that he brought along from the beginning, invested in the youth career. This is his Max Verstappen. He wants that desperately. He's never forgotten losing out on Max the Red Bull because they had a seat to offer and he didn't. And I think he is so desperate to create his own Max that he is willing to sacrifice George to do it.
That's valid. That's valid. I mean, to be honest though, George could be on his way out anyway. I don't think they've inked a new deal yet. Even I saw this weekend he had came out and said that he will be with Mercedes next season, but they
Yeah.
haven't even inked a new deal yet. And I think his
Well,
contract ends at the end of this
that we
season.
know of. Let's not forget George's contract negotiations tend to be done pretty quietly in the background.
I still feel like it would have came out though, because there has been so much speculation about whether George stays with Mercedes or
I don't
if a
really think
seat
there's
opens
anywhere
up.
else for him to go. Where's he going to go?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing rumors of Max going to McLaren, and that means Oscar would go to Red Bull, which we all know Red Bull's wanted Oscar for a long time.
Yeah, and I don't think Red Bull want anything to do with George because Red Bull doesn't. Red
Like,
Red Bull and George have never gotten along,
yeah,
and I he's just not that. He's not the right personality. But even the Oscar situation, part of me questions if that's the right move. I know this is gonna sound a little bit controversial, but if I were Red Bull and Max leaves, I wouldn't sign anyone.
I mean, they do have 5 drivers and only 4 seats.
Yeah, I would put Lindblad beside Hadger, and I'd move Soloff up to work with Lawson.
It sounds like Lawson's keeping his seat next year, which is good.
I don't know how that's going to happen. Red Bull are kind of in a weird, awkward position where Red Bull went from not having enough drivers in their academy to.
Having too many.
Well, I don't think anyone expected this from Nikola Soloff. He's won 4 races in F2 this year. He is head to head with Mini for the championship. He won from third in Austria in an incredible drive. This dude's good. He's really good. I mean, when you consider the point we're at in the season and he already has 4 wins, he's had a couple so results as well. But for his first year in F2, he's doing amazing.
That's the one, like F2, sometimes F3, but F2 is one that I really want to make more time to watch. Like, desperately.
Yeah, this season has been really interesting because it really is kind of a two-horse race right now. It's Gabriel Mini and Nicholas Soloff, and they both look incredible. And I think Red Bull are in a really awkward position for next year, where I think ideally they kind of expected Lawson to not do as well as he's doing, but Lawson's having an amazing season. He's
He's
only
really
had one or two races outside of the points. He scored points again, finishing ahead of Lindblad. Lindblad is amazing as a rookie, as I thought he would be. I'm going to toot my own horn on that because I've been talking about that kid for a couple years now, and he is that good. And Hadger has performed extremely well beside Max. Probably the best since the beginning of Sergio, before Max kind of destroyed him. And
now Cadillac's destroying him.
Cadillacs are destroying Cadillacs. They just apparently catch on fire when it gets hot out. But Red Bull are kind of in a really awkward situation next year. It's a good awkward situation to have, but they don't have enough seats for how talented their drivers lineup is.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I think.
I guess first, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
What is the likelihood do you actually think of Max going to McLaren, given the success of the upgrades that Red Bull just had at the Red Bull Ring, where Max was competing for a win on pace?
I don't know. I mean, if he goes to McLaren, I don't think it's about having a winning car. I think part of this would be fueled by GP going to McLaren in 2028. And obviously, GP's been Max's race engineer for all of his success. They're very, very close, not just as a you know coworker type of thing, but they're actually really good friends. Um, I think it would be more motivated by being able to enjoy driving, and that's not to say he doesn't do that at Red Bull. I'm sure he does, especially since Red Bull basically lets him do whatever the hell he wants to do. You want to go race GT, you know, World Cup or World Challenge to 24 hours of Spa next year? Yeah, go ahead if it lines up. Like, he's got a free check to do whatever he wants. I think it might be less likely that he leaves Red Bull though, because all of the things that Red Bull allows him to do, and all of the thing, not only in terms of like his free time and racing other series and stuff like that, but they also, like we've talked about in many episodes, they bankroll his GT team, his sim team, everything. Red Bull does, and
Yeah. They pay a significant chunk of that.
yeah, and I mean, I'm sure McLaren could offer similar things of the like, but I just find it less likely to be a competitive thing versus what Red Bull's already doing for
Well, and
Max
now
outside of F1.
even Red Bull's esports team is now part of Verstappen Racing.
Yeah.
Like that was a separate thing, and now it's not anymore.
Yeah.
I the problem I have with it is I think Max only really cares about winning races.
I see. I don't think he does.
He wants something that he wants to be able to compete for wins.
Yes. I don't think he cares so much about winning as much as he wants to compete.
Yeah, and that's what I think matters is if Red Bull can prove that he can fight at the front. And I would like to think with this upgrade package they did because Hadger also had a good race. So that tells me it's working for both guys. I mean, they had a few issues with brakes and things like that, but for a new package, it worked pretty well, which also tells you the correlation is working. And I do find it. So you and I talked about this through text. One of their technical directors left this week. And it just so happens that the upgrade package worked. I very much wonder if behind the scenes there was a big disagreement on what to do. Max wanted one thing, and they didn't go with Max at first, and this was going more with Max's side of the idea, and it worked.
That could be it because of all the, drama and past issues Red Bull's had the last few seasons. But I could also see it very much being Cadillac offered that dude a big ass bag to come fix their bullshit.
Well, but he was the last guy left. He was the last of the OGs left. Pierre was he was it. He was the last of that original management staff that was left. It is now just Max. So you wonder if Max has been complaining about the technical things with the car for a while. And now that we know that Red Bull apparently have the best engine on the grid, it's been the car that's the problem. Now, Red Bull don't
Yeah.
necessarily agree that they have the best, but they say they do, so we'll go by that. That means it's the car.
Yeah.
And now you've gotten rid of the guy who made the car, and the car's faster.
I have a question for you. Do you think it would be smart for Red Bull to let Max walk to McLaren, given that they have so many, great drivers in their academy team or academy, thing? Like, and obviously
I
we know Zach Brown's had a hard on for Max for years now,
I
and I
think that
find. Go ahead.
I think that would depend on if Max still plans on leaving after his contract. If Max still plans on leaving at the end of his contract, yes. You save a whole fuck ton of money, a ridiculous amount of money if you don't have Max. And if he's going to leave anyway, I wouldn't want to risk losing a driver like Lawson just to then be minus a driver.
Yeah.
Because the drop off behind Soloff is kind of sharp right now. And you don't have an immediate. Say next year comes, they move Soloff off and get rid of Lawson. Then Max leaves. What do you do? That puts you in a really awkward situation like when Danny left.
Yeah.
And we saw how many years I think Hadger's the closest, well, Checo in the beginning was the closest they came to recovering from that. Checo's the only guy not named Max to win a race since Danny left. So you don't really want to put yourself in that situation, especially when Hadger's not Max.
Yeah.
So honestly, God, this hurts to say. If I'm Red Bull and he really wants to go,
Let him.
I don't really fight it.
I just feel like McLaren's gonna have to offer a hell of a lot more than a competitive car and a seat to get Max to go.
You know what would be interesting about him going to McLaren though? In endurance racing, nobody gives a shit about McLaren. Of all the manufacturers in endurance racing, they're the ones that nobody really talks about all that much. You hear a lot about Porsche. You hear a lot about
Mercedes.
this year. Acura's been really good in the prototype class. Cadillac's been really good in the prototype class. In GT, it's Porsche, it's Aston, it's Mustang, it's Corvette, it's Ferrari, even Lamborghini, Lexus. You're getting kind of far down there before anyone starts caring about a McLaren.
Yeah.
And now you have Genesis trying to come to GT racing.
When you put it like that, it would make sense for McLaren to bankroll Max's GT stuff.
Not just GT, don't forget, it's not just Ford who have a hypercar coming, so do McLaren.
Yeah. Interesting.
I could,
Interesting.
and as much as Zach Brown acts like, you know, the biggest man on campus, don't forget how much he loves his other teams.
Yeah,
A
he missed an F1 race to go to Indy.
Yeah. You think Zach Brown wouldn't love to say McLaren won at the Nürburgring, or McLaren won at Le Mans, or McLaren won at Daytona? Max has talked about wanting to do Daytona this year.
That would be so sick because we're gonna be
Zach
there.
Brown would put a brand new McLaren team just to put Max in it.
Yeah, he would. He definitely
Put
would.
I could see him putting him with some other McLaren drivers in other series, like bringing maybe some of the Indy guys over or something like that, and putting together a pretty cool team, or letting Max build a team. There's a lot of ways that could go, but I think that's also what it would take.
Yeah.
It would take McLaren throwing not just a bag, the entire fucking bank and their entire sphere of influence at Max.
Yeah. I'm very torn on how realistic it is for it to happen. But when you add the fact that Piastri has a clause where he can leave at the end of the season, that kind of just makes it more realistic. Because I feel like Piastri's kind of in a similar position as George. Where I mean, it's not necessarily 100% similar, but like Piastri hasn't
I think
really
it's
gotten
worse.
Yeah, I think Piastri's never gotten the respect from McLaren that he deserves especially after last season.
Now, the one thing I will say that gives this a little bit of legs, Mark Webber. There are a lot of rumors that Mark Webber is pissed at McLaren. He does not like the way Oscar's been treated. He's not around the paddock as much anymore. I originally thought that was because Piastri didn't want him around the paddock as much. I think it's because Webber and Zach Brown do not get along. There are a lot of rumors coming out that Webber is not happy with Piastri's situation, and Piastri and family are starting to not be happy about that situation.
Understandably.
Webber is a Red Bull legend. That gives that a little bit of legs.
Yeah. And by a little bit, I mean like a lot of legs, actually.
Because he still has a really, really good relationship with Red Bull. And for Oscar, you don't want to go to Mercedes and end up in the same exact role you already are. Nobody wants to go to Aston. There's not really.
He definitely wouldn't vibe with Audi. He'd shoot himself in the foot. He went to Cadillac.
Well, and with Leclerc's extension, there's no real seat left.
No, because Lewis is going to be there until he retires, and then he's an ambassador.
Yeah, and Lewis has said that he plans on racing a few more years. So,
and the only other open seat would be an Ashton seat, because it looks like Fernando's got basically one whole foot and then half the other foot out the door already.
Well, when you nearly get lapped by Alex Albon, who's the position ahead of you.
Yeah, I mean, he was down by a minute.
He was down by more than a minute. He was down by 3 laps.
Well, yeah, but he was behind the leader by more than a minute. Or behind Albon by more than a minute.
Yeah, Albon almost lapped him. 2 more laps, Albon would have lapped him.
That's insane. And he was last.
The Aston was so slow. I wonder if they could even run their hybrid system at that point. Like,
I'm just
to be that slow, you had to not be using your electronics or something. Like,
it just doesn't. I said this because Chris and I were watching, and usually teams will retire a car if they don't stand a chance of being anything. But they didn't retire the car, and it made no sense to me.
Maybe they needed some data.
For at half, like 3/4 or a quarter of the pace that they normally would drive.
I don't know. Maybe Fernando just felt like an afternoon drive.
That's fair, but I was supposed to keep us on track.
Surprised it was going fast enough to cool the brakes.
I was supposed to keep us on track, but luckily we talked about Red Bull already and Russell. So has Ferrari passed McLaren? Is one of the other F1 topics. And I think so, truly. Like, which sucks. I'm a McLaren fan, but I also like Ferrari, even though Tifosi can be dumb a lot of the time.
I don't
But
really give a shit about Ferrari, but aside from, we were both happy to see Lewis win. That was awesome. Lewis deserved at least one win in a Ferrari. Like it would have been a horrible asterisk to his career if he never got to have one. So at least now we know no matter what happens, Lewis got one at Ferrari.
yeah,
That's awesome. Happy for that. But at what was supposed to be one of their worst tracks of the year, they were still competitive.
yeah. And they've
They look,
been consistently competitive for the last 3 races.
yeah, and I mean now they have to kind of fight a charging Red Bull a little bit, but it looks like they are on the right path. They are on the right development path. It it seems like Ferrari should be fighting for race wins. And that could be fun because it looks like Red Bull might fight for some race wins. So you legitimately have a three-way fight in some races. And that's exciting to me. I do wonder if who's better between McLaren and Ferrari will become a little track specific and temperature specific and things like that. Like we'll see if they keep that same advantage at Silverstone.
I mean, I think the only reason George had pole for Austria is the whole debacle that happened at the very, very end of quali with Max spinning it into the wall. Kimi completely just foiling the rest of his lap, but then George barely letting off and
Which
somehow setting that lap.
which apparently that wreck was caused by Max's wing not closing
And
all the way.
I think you said that. I think you said that during text before you even saw it. Or well, I sent you the clip because I don't think you saw quali, but
That type of wreck didn't make sense completely for how he normally drives that track. It was kind of normally when Max has trouble there, it's coming out of the last turn. And that was just a really weird spin. I thought it was either like brake or maybe something with the wing. It ended up being the wing. The wing was slow closing.
just threw him off.
I love Max. Did you see Max's joke across the start finish
Yeah.
line with the
Yep.
double yellows? Oh, that means flat out past the car.
Yep.
This is why I hate George.
Yep.
Oh, because George complains so much about other drivers, but he will exploit anything that he can, even things that I think you shouldn't be able to exploit. Like that was bad race direction. A car's in the wall. That should be a double yellow. And I'm going to go off about some more race direction in another series later, but it should be a simple thing. If a car is in a fucking tire barrier, double wave yellows. Because the problem is anyone could have came around that corner, bend it in there, and the only place to go is where Max was.
Before you continue, I want to give you an update because I have the Germany Paraguay game on
Yeah,
my
I have it
phone.
up too.
Yeah, they're going to penalty kicks.
Yeah, I saw that.
If you hear me outburst because either Germany fucked up or Germany won, that's why. Because I'm excited. I want Germany to continue, and I don't really care about Paraguay that much. So, but yeah, I was a bit heated, and I thought I was gonna go on a rant about it today. I'm just not feeling being angry, except for if Germany loses. But it was really fucking stupid, and like Kimmy had a bunch of miscommunication with Bono this week, and not just in quali at the end where Bono said that it was a double yellow, so Kimmy backed off his lap, but also during the race there was a bunch of miscommunication as well. And it's such an interesting thing because usually Bono doesn't have miscommunication.
But you know what's weird about Mercedes? That kind of happens with them every now and then. where occasionally they just have a weekend where there's a lot of things that go wrong. They seem like one of those teams that they have perfect operation, and then when it goes wrong, it goes really wrong. And this felt like one of those weekends for Kimmy where it's like there were a lot of stupid things that shouldn't have happened that went wrong that did from people who usually don't make those mistakes. And it just kind of felt like, and I mean, I still think they really got bailed out by Red Bull because I think Red Bull, if they make the right call, win that race.
Yeah,
And yeah, it just felt like Kimmy's qualifying was weird, and then the race communication wasn't quite what it normally is. It was just an odd weekend.
it
But
was.
they've kind of had a lot of bad weekends at the Red Bull Ring. They've had some good ones, but they've had some really bad weekends there where things go wrong.
Before we jump into other topics, as much as I hate Russell, I do got to give him some flowers because it came out after the race that his hydration system didn't work for the entire race, and
Yeah,
he raced that entire race when it was like 96 degrees air temperature for 71 laps with no hydration.
yeah,
It's
that
absolutely
was
mental. That I have to give him some flowers for that because that's brutal. That is
yeah.
absolutely
I
brutal.
I agree 100%. Like he did an amazing job to hold on to that because it wasn't just like he was being chased down by Max multiple times in the race, and that's a tough track. That's a really tough track. Even though you have the long straights that you get a break on, it's very technical, and it's very much a track that almost constantly turns one way, and you don't get that a lot in F1. But
Yeah.
it's a very awkward track. It's a track that really punishes you for mistakes. And kudos to him. Like he did what he had to do and was fast enough to be able to fend off stuff. And I also give him credit that he really pushed them to have Kimmy push Max to pit. And that ended up winning him the race because Max wasn't able to do the strategy they were trying, where he had the medium tires to come back really fast during the race. He kind of had to abandon that strategy because Kimmy was really, really catching up to him. So, and that was a strategy that George called for. So I give him a lot of props for that. You know, he pit and immediately was like, "Hey, have Kimmy push Max." And
Yeah.
credit to that's a veteran knowing how the race is playing out and paying attention to what's going on and knowing what's going to benefit him, and it worked out. He called that exactly right.
So earlier you had said you're kind of glad Red Bull didn't win, so we didn't get accused of Red Bull winning and us coming back. But that's not entirely true because a Red Bull boy won in NASCAR at Sonoma this weekend. Our boy SVG killed it.
Well, that's kind of expected at this point. If he doesn't get wrecked out of a race, he tends to win it when it's a road course. Probably would have won at San Diego if he didn't get taken out. And Sonoma, he had a bit of a challenge. He had to fight it off at the end of the race, but it's Sonoma, it's SVG. He wins all the road courses unless something happens.
Isn't this the last road course of the season though?
I believe so because they took the Roval off the playoffs. So yeah, I
Yeah.
believe
So
this
he
is it.
really has to dial in these ovals to
Well, but
make it to the
he's been
playoffs.
good on. He's been good enough on ovals this year that he should be all right, barring any crazy disasters. I will say the Sonoma race kind of sucked,
Yeah, it was kind
and
of boring.
maybe that was just because it was on the back of the San Diego race, which I have to say was one of the best road course races NASCAR has had in a really long time. I thought that track was going to be garbage. I hated the layout. I thought it was going to be a boring procession of a race. I couldn't have been more wrong. That was one of the most exciting races of the year. I don't tend to like NASCAR on road courses because those cars suck for road courses.
But that was a really good one.
Yeah. Maybe NASCAR just needs street tracks and to abandon the road courses because Watkins Glen kind of sucked and Sonoma kind of sucked, but put them on a street track. And that's kind of how Chicago was. Chicago was entertaining and supposedly back next year. I think San Diego was a one off, but it shouldn't be a one off because, God, it was awesome.
Yeah. Well, I saw that talk that they're trying to bring it back for next year too.
I don't think they expected it to be as good as it was. I think they were doing it for the show of it. But the
Yeah.
racing ended up being
Phenomenal.
incredible. Absolutely incredible. And it was awesome seeing Heim get that win. Really fucking cool for him.
It was awesome to see K-Mags 2.0.
Oh my God.
Suck
K-Mag.
my balls, mate. But this time he says, "Do you speak English? Fuck off."
That was the best part of the weekend. The do you not understand English? I'm telling you to fuck off. From the Danish guy talking to the American just made it 10 times better. It's like, thought you understood English. I'm saying fuck off. That was, oh man, I loved it.
I really want K-Mags back in NASCAR. That was awesome.
Well, and he said, like, look, his dad had done a NASCAR race, and he said, look, I know what this is. I know what these guys do. Like, I came prepared, elbows out, and hey, if there's a NASCAR driver with the aggression of K-Mag, it's probably just Carson.
Yeah.
And I mean, if there's an open wheel guy you want in a NASCAR who understands, nobody's going to push K-Mag around. Nobody.
No.
K-Mag will push right back. He fuck smashed the door. He will fuck smash your car too.
And he'll let you know about it after the race.
People
too.
forget that he almost got fired from Haas because he destroyed a door after an argument. Like, sometimes you don't fuck with the crazy guy.
Yeah. Oh, it's nail biting right now, man.
Now, I got to go on a bit of a rant.
Yeah, it's rant time.
I don't know what the fuck IMSA was doing, but they need to get their heads out of their ass.
What IMSA race was it this weekend? Because I only saw the 24 hours. Oh, ooh, okay. I was literally just out there 2 weeks ago.
And outside of the TV direction being some of the most horrible TV direction I've ever seen outside of Monaco, like, I don't know if the announcers can't see the screen, but there were points when there were wrecks on track and the announcers just talking about random shit. And it's like, dude, there's 6 cars in a pileup. What the fuck are you talking about? But there was an incident. First off, the driving standards in IMSA were shit. Absolute shit. I love IMSA. It is probably my third favorite racing series. It's a little bit behind WEC, but not much. WEC gets ahead because they have a couple things that IMSA doesn't as far as cars, drivers. Toyota and my favorite team are in WEC, so I like that a little bit more, but I love IMSA too. The driving standards of Watkins Glen were garbage. Absolute garbage. The drivers should be ashamed of themselves for how bad they were. It was horrendous. Way too many crashes, way too many dumb incidents that were avoidable. But IMSA had an issue where they could have seriously injured somebody, and I don't know what the fuck they were thinking. Where so there's a caution, cars are pitting, and you get held at the pit lane when the safety car is coming by, kind of just like you do in any other motorsport. So a GT car and a GTP car come out of the pits after being held. And at Watkins Glen, you have the S's up the hill. For some dumb reason, IMSA thought that was the perfect place to stop the GT cars and have them go extremely slowly so that cars that needed to get around could. The problem is nobody knew from the cars behind. So you have a GTP car coming from the pit trying to catch the pack, going through the S's, gets to the top of the S's, and oh shit, there's a slow moving procession, tries to swerve to avoid to miss it. Huge accident that takes out a couple of cars, including the GT cars falling behind it. Could have been a horrendous wreck, could have killed somebody. The lack of communication sometimes in IMSA drives me crazy because if you listen to the way the WEC race controls their races and gives their countdowns and things like and lets people know where the safety cars are, and that goes over the public channel. That's even on the TV broadcast you can hear. IMSA needs to be better about their race direction because it's not the first time they've kind of had chaotic race direction. But this could have got somebody killed. That was a fast moving car coming up to cars that were practically parked. They were going so slow, going below safety car speed. And that's not an easy place for the spotters to see what's going on.
Was there no indicators on the track? Because like on a lot of tracks, there's like the yellow flashers or the red
Well, I mean,
flashers. Like,
they were under full course yellow, but you were having guys who pit trying to catch up to their packs because they split them by pack. The GTs have their pack, the prototypes have theirs. So the prototype car is trying to go around to get to his pack, but they had slowed up the GT field more than safety car pace. Like they were going slower than regular safety car pace. So he's not expecting to come up to this nearly parked procession, only sees it at the top of the hill, and then can't get out of the way fast enough. And that incident could have been so much worse. As bad as it was, it could have been worse because you ended up taking out two prototypes and a couple GT cars. Three
that's
cars coming out of the pit shouldn't create a fucking 10-car accident. It wasn't 10.
no. But still,
Still.
anything more than 2 is still too many cars.
And that just added to a weekend that had been so bad with wrecks. So many damn wrecks. Drivers being careless. And I know that's a difficult track, but that's not an excuse.
Germany's eliminated.
That's why you don't let lesser teams take you to penalty kicks.
Fuck.
Now that kind of gives France a walkthrough in the next round.
Du bist eine Scheiße Kopf.
All right, that's my IMSA rant. I was just really disappointed because the Glen is an awesome race. It's a nice little 6-hour race. It's fun. There's no reason it should have been that messy.
Yeah.
Especially in perfect weather. Like, yeah, it was hot. But
and that
no
disorganized.
Rain. Yeah, it just... It was a messy look. Everything about it was bad. The broadcast was bad. The drivers... the driving standards were crap. And the race direction was kind of crap. I was... You know how much I love IMSA, and I was really, really disappointed watching that race. Because I basically didn't watch other stuff to watch that. And then it's like, well, shit. Because at some point I had to sleep, so I decided to sleep and miss a big chunk of Spa. And it's like, well, shit. I could have watched more of this if I knew this was going to be so garbage.
And see, I caught Spa at the worst times too. Like I caught it for a couple hours throughout the race, but like I was also with Kristen and the kids this weekend, and playing F1 against Kristen is always more fun than watching a nighttime race. But
Spa came at... It was just a really awkward... I think with the World Cup going on, it made Spa really hard to pay attention to.
Yeah.
Because there was so much going on. You have the F1 weekend, you have an IMSA weekend, you have a NASCAR weekend. It has so much going on that, honestly, I forgot Spa was happening until I saw the qualifying highlights pop up on my YouTube, and I'm like, oh, shit. I forgot this was on.
I didn't even know 24 Hours of Spa was happening this weekend until I opened up YouTube TV to like check when NASCAR was and what channel and stuff. And I saw that was on. I was like, ooh, fun.
Like, oh crap, forgot this existed. It, it sucks. I wish I would have paid more attention to it like I did last year. This was a wild weekend for me, so it was a lot.
Yeah, so it's always a wild weekend though. But I think that's a good show.
Yeah, and I'm you know what I'm most excited for, and I know this sounds stupid, but I think right now in motorsport, the thing I'm most excited for is the F2 title fight. It's only a couple points between them, and they have been the two guys head and shoulders above the field the whole year, and I'm really, really interested in how this plays out.
I definitely need to start watching F2 more.
Oh, it's so much fun. It's a little chaos. There are a lot of cars, a lot of drivers, some who probably shouldn't be there. It makes things interesting. And I just love seeing who's next. I love watching races, seeing who's that next guy to watch out for, because it affects so much of the driver market now, knowing what's coming up behind.
Yeah. And I think for us, especially us running a podcast about F1 primarily, like knowing that next up and coming driver is going to be huge, you know?
Yeah, one
It
hundred
opens up a
percent.
lot of doors for us and I need to get back onto watching F2 and finding my drivers that I enjoy. Although they're probably going to be pretty similar to yours most days. So,
I'll tell you what I'm also excited for, and I'm sure we'll get to talk about this next week. NASCAR is returning to Chicagoland next week.
ooh, yay.
Weirdly, a 6 p.m. race. Not as excited about that. It's kind of a weird time, but it will be nice to see them returning to Chicagoland. Usually puts on decent races, so I'm kind of excited about that to see what happens there.
I'm excited about the 6 p.m. start time just because it gives me time between F1 to do errands and things like that and then watch the NASCAR race. But it is a later start time. I do like the afternoon start times a lot. So
That's usually my finish my the last of my college projects for the week time, so I have to be
bump it up in the day.
narrating presentations and shite while watching NASCAR on mute in the background.
In the middle of it, you see Van Gisbergen crash out. And you're like, fuck.
Yeah. Just middle of my presentation. God damn it.
Sorry, I was watching NASCAR. Back to the business.
Ah,
But that's probably where we're gonna wrap it. I think it's been a really good episode. It feels good to feel like we have a flow again, especially after a few episodes of not having a flow and then a month off that we didn't expect. But I can tell you that we're both very excited to be back. And yeah, I'm excited about the new look and
we're
everything.
also going back to having set release times for our episodes instead of just
Monday night.
randomly on Monday nights at any time. Now we're going to do Tuesday morning in the States, which will be afternoon in the UK.
Yeah, so it'll be 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time US and then 12 p.m. I'm just use Germany because that's what I usually base it off of. 6
Yeah.
or 12 p.m. Tuesday Germany time.
Yeah, that way it's a little more consistent, and you guys
It'd
know at
be
the
a
same time every week an episode's out instead of us getting them up as soon as they're done being edited. Makes a lot
yeah
more sense to have a constant release time.
yeah. If you're in the UK, it'd be 11 a.m. your time. So
Take your lunch break with us, listen to us talk some shit, get a few laughs.
or just skip work and listen to us. That's even better.
While you're trying out your new ranch dressing that you stole back home and managed to pack in your suitcases. We saw you guys at TSA. Not talking so much shit about that fat American food now, are you? Yeah, you see why we like it.
Well, as always, I've been Tyler,
I've been Josh.
and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in.